Hello and welcome back to Matchbook's Weekend Football Podcast. We haven't done one of these in a while, but of course we have recorded a midweek special earlier in the week. And it's Thursday morning we're recording this, so it's pretty awkward given that we have two games still to be played on Thursday night, and it's kind of affecting the markets. And we can't really do a full recap of the midweek show, but AC, your best bet, did cash. Both teams to score. Got there in the end, 74th minute, the mighty Reading.
It was nailed on. It was neither team can keep a clean sheet. Yeah, I was worried that I'd sort of jinxed it by flagging it up so strongly, but yeah, so much to my relief, Reading got themselves a goal in that second half. But yeah, it was all right. Yeah, obviously Exeter came good, and the Wickham game. I mean, we talked about it on WhatsApp. I flagged them up to win, and what was it, 22 shots to 3 or to 1? It was unbelievable that they didn't win the game. So yeah, sort of hit the post for a hat trick there.
Yeah, and if you've been following some Matchbook Insights, you will see that Mr. Mark O'Hare has a 33% ROI on the season, 21 winners from his last 24 bets. It's easy game, Mark O'Hare. You've already published on Matchbook Insights. We won't give the game away, but you've got one win at Italy, one win. Oh, sorry, one. What am I saying? One win, one bet in Italy. I'm just being so presumptuous, Adrian. When this guy gives us, I'm just backing these. They tend to win. But Mark, a tricky weekend on the continent overall, though, right?
Yeah, excuses in early if I can. Yeah, I mean, I'm not joking. I'm feeling the pressure more and more every week. I mean, obviously delighted to get the winners, but they also bring extra pressure and extra eyes. So I need to kind of stay on the game. But yeah, I think domestically and across the continent, it does look like a really tricky and trappy weekend. So yeah, not too many great opportunities. Whereas last week I felt there was a few outstanding bets on the coupon. It isn't so much this time around.
Yeah, I'm going to add to your pressure, mate. There's plenty of page views on that content, so just so you know. So let's keep it going. All right, guys. 4 Premier League games we're going to cover today. 2 EFL selections. Don't forget, actually, Adrian, you're in great form in Matchbook Insights as well, mate. You really picked it up in 2022, so good job there. So we got 2 EFL picks, and Mark has 1 selection from La Liga. Let's get into it. We're going to start with Sunday's action. First of all, we're going to look at Spurs and Wolverhampton. I think this is a pretty good game, guys. And again, look, we kind of preface this with the fact that we don't really kind of have an idea of that Wolves performance on Thursday night. Again, I understand this is awkward listening on a Friday or Saturday, but we'll do our very best with it. So the main lines at the moment for Tottenham and Wolves, you can back Tottenham 1.7, Wolves at 6.0 to the draw available at 3.95. Wolves are getting a goal start really on the main age and handicap line at 1.7, but you can back that down to 3/4 at 1.98, even money around that, and the main goal line is about the 2.25 mark at the moment. Mark, kick us off here. Look, we fancy Tottenham to win and over 1.5 goals. There was plenty of goals, but a disappointing reverse at home to Southampton, and a surprising one.
Surprising one. I think it was surprising the manner of the defeat as well. They were totally outplayed from the first whistle, really. Southampton could have been ahead within the first 5 minutes, and they kind of continued with that pace, that ferocious press, and really kind of made life uncomfortable for Tottenham and fully deserved their win, I felt, across the full 90 minutes. So fair play to them, called that game wrong. But coming into this match against Wolves, yeah, a lot of what we said, it's a very similar situation and dilemma I've kind of got coming into this match as I had with Wolves and Arsenal, who play on Thursday night. You know, it does feel to me like it's a bit of an unders game. It's going to be a tight match. Obviously, with Wolves playing away, naturally the prices will contract a little bit with them being the underdogs here. But I don't know. You look at the prices compared to what Wolves did against Tottenham. It would be very similar if you kind of pick this match as at a neutral venue, really. So kind of all the same sort of angles kind of come into play. And I don't want to kind of go over old grounds, but it's worth reiterating that pre-Arsenal, all Wolves' 9 matches against the top half so far this season have ended 1-0 or 0-0, 3 wins, 1 draw, 5 defeats. And across the whole campaign, their average goals per game is at 1.67, 76% of matches featuring under 2.5 goals, 57% going under 1.5 goals, which is quite staggering, really. And both teams to score no has collected on 71% of their matches too. So, you know, those couple of goals-based bets definitely stick in the mind. This is a Wolves team that only scored multiple goals on 6 occasions, all against bottom half teams. Wolves, a team who've only conceded multiple goals on 3 occasions, all against bottom half teams. And that stat is so impressive because only Man City and Chelsea have conceded multiple goals on such seldom occasions as Wolves. So dig into the data. They occupy a bottom 6th place in terms of all the sort of attacking metrics you look towards, but also a top 6th place for all the defensive stats you look towards. So, very good at keeping teams out and very competitive, but not so good in the final third at either creating or converting. And I think I kind of take my Wolves bias into this game more so than Spurs. But what did interest me, and I think we've got slightly different approaches to this game, myself and Adrian, but what did interest me with the Spurs price is they're pretty much the same price as they were at home to Southampton midweek, which is basically saying that the market rates Saints and Wolves as a similar sort of beast, really, and I disagree with that. And Tottenham have been, they went off at 175 at home to Palace in December, 170 at home to Brentford earlier in the season. I know they've gone through a transition of a different coach now, but I think Wolves are better than all of those teams. So that's an interesting conundrum to take. I thought Conte was starting to get a real tune out of his team. Things didn't, they kind of unravelled in midweek, but I think you've got to give credit to Southampton rather than sort of pick out Tottenham's weaknesses there. The only issue really for Wolves is they do have a bit of a rest disadvantage playing on Thursday night, but they've all had a big break coming into this match, so they should be pretty fresh. So yeah, you're going to have a conundrum here where you take either Wolves with a decent handicap start because we know that they can keep things competitive, particularly against the better teams, or you take a view opposing goals. And, in a roundabout way, I guess I've come to the conclusion that I'm just going to take under 2.5 goals at around about 175 on the market. I think there's a bit of juice there. It was only going to trend downwards in that regard, I think, before Sunday. After all, this bet is 1 in 16 of their 21 games. And I just think the reason why I've taken this as opposed to anything else, you just get a few more correct scores on your side, really. If you do think it's going to be a reasonably low-scoring game, you've got the 0-0, the 1-1, 1-0 either way, 2-0 either way even. So I just thought I got a bit more for my money out of that than backing anything else, but I couldn't put anyone off backing Wolves with a good start here either.
Yeah, and look, Adrian, Mark has kind of tipped his hat there in the sense that you're coming at this from a different angle, but it's a very similar way. And Mark touched on it at the midweek preview that if you back Wolves with your selection, which is plus a goal in any of the other big games, I mean, even to Man City and Liverpool, you would have got your money back. And they're just playing these better teams, these top 6 teams, so to speak, really well this season. Yeah,
they've kind of done it ever since they came into the Premier League. They've raised their game and been really, really awkward opponents for the big guns. And this season's no different. Obviously, they won at Old Trafford, didn't they? By 1-0. They drew with Chelsea 0-0. Maybe, they could easily have won that game. Narrowly defeated by City and Liverpool. So they've got that pedigree. If they can do that, they can certainly draw or nick a narrow victory at Spurs, who were really poor, weren't they? I have to say, I found myself sort of nodding internally as Mark was explaining all that, because the stat, everything points towards a tight game. It often does with Wolves. I also think you should factor in back threes matching up, and often when back threes match up, you do get a cancelling out effect. So I can see it being a low scoring affair. The only thing that puts me off of that slightly is how bad Tottenham are at the back. Really shocking to give away 23 shots to Southampton in midweek, 10 of those on target is a really troubling sign. Davinson Sanchez, I've never rated him. Spurs fans have come at me for that over the years, but I just don't think he's a great defender. Emerson Royale is on his way to be. Again, I've got stick for criticising Emerson Royale, but for me, he looks championship level. I just don't think he's good enough to be in the Spurs starting 11. Ben Davies isn't the player he was. Even Reguilon is making consistent mistakes at centre half, so at left wing back. So I'm not impressed with Spurs, but do Wolves have the tools to hurt them? And that's where I do side with Mark. Trincão's neat and tidy. Raul Jimenez is a good player, but not at his prolific best. So I think it'll be close. I think it will be. It could easily be a draw. But Wolves with a handicap was my pick. Just the right side of 1.7. You could obviously be a bit more daring and go with plus 3/4 of a goal. You get even money there, which again is tempting if you think that Wolves will either win or get a draw. And based on form, I think they've got every chance of doing that. So it's a pick 'em. It really is. I'm happy with mine, but equally, if someone's to say you've got to put money on the unders, I'd be fine doing that too.
Yeah, I think we'd all be very comfortable doing that in this one. Look, there's definitely enough scope there for 2 bets there. And Wolves +1 is Adrian's selection. And again, if you want to be a bit more brave and daring, you can take Wolves +3/4 of a goal, which obviously, if they lose by 1, you lose only half of your stake, and that's available at 2.0 at matchbook.com. Mark selections under 2.5 at 1.75. Right, moving swiftly on Sunday. And again, it's a bit tricky, this one, because we're recording on Thursday morning. Leicester are playing on Thursday night against Liverpool. We covered that game on the midweek pod. But let's take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com for Leicester against West Ham. Leicester 2.9, West Ham at 2.5. The draw available at 3.6. Leicester getting a half a goal start on the main Asian handicap. You can back that. It's quite short now at the moment. It's 1.7. You can back them draw no bet though at about odds against 2.1. And the main total line is 2.5. And again, shaded towards the over there. Adrian, what do you make of this? I mean, look, Leicester, again, they're playing on Thursday night. I don't think we're going to suggest that there's going to be a defensive resurgence in this side. If you look back the last couple of weeks, potential for goals here in this one, or what way do you see it? Leicester.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one to call. I'd like to sort of know how they got on at Anfield. I suspect that they will have conceded a few in that game. But yeah, I think you can't write off Leicester, even though they are poor at the back. We've been, talking about that all season, been making mistakes aplenty. They did also beat Liverpool. They did also beat Manchester United at the King Power Stadium. It's a very atmospheric ground. This one will be lively because of what's happened with Kurt Zouma. They'll certainly be on his case. So I think at the King Power, Leicester have always got a chance. I really do, even though results have been patchy. This season, a lot of their forward players are in good nick. Patson Daka, James Maddison are 2 that stand out. I give them a chance of scoring in the game. I mean, they score in most games. Leicester City, you should take that into account. Then look at West Ham. And I'm not blown away by West Ham's form at the moment. Away from home, they've not beaten anyone inside the top 10. Now, ahead of this midweek fixture, Leicester were 10th. So I would class them as a top 10 side. They've not won away to anyone decent this season, West Ham. They've failed to score as well in 5 of 12 away games. It's been feast or famine. They either smash 3 or 4 or they blob. And I think that they're not completely in sync away from home. Just 3 away clean sheets as well. And in those games where they got clean sheets, they drew 2 of those games, so they didn't win. So the Leicester draw no bet at home at the King Power against a team that haven't been brilliant away from home to the stronger teams appeals at 2.1, I have to say. But this is Leicester. This is West Ham have got Jarrod Bowen, who's in good nick. So you've also got to look, I think, at the overs market. Over 2.5 has to be a consideration because clean sheets don't happen too often for Leicester. And as I've just outlined, I think they're more than capable of scoring at least once against West Ham. So again, I'm sort of hedging my bets here. I'm happy with the Leicester draw no bet at odds against, but the overs is a runner here for sure. The Hammers, by the way, have a good recent record against Leicester. I think they've scored 10 goals against them in their last 3 meetings. So stylistically, whatever it is, I think it might be the fact that West Ham are so good at getting on the end of crosses and Leicester is so bad at defending. And that might be one of the reasons they've enjoyed themselves against the Foxes. But Rodgers has to turn it around sometime soon, and he hasn't got the worst team in the Premier League. I think they can be competitive in the game.
Just before we go to Mark, Adrian, and I don't want to stay too long on this because it's been chatted about pretty extensively elsewhere, but David Moyes picking Zouma on Wednesday night against Watford. What did you make of that?
It's a pretty shameful selection, really. I understand why he's trying to differentiate the football side with what's going on elsewhere, but yeah, I think you got to read the room. Got to have a bit of moral compass there. I think that it was a terrible call, really. He had Issa D up on the bench. He could easily have put another. It wasn't as if he was down to the bare bones. The message it sends out is very wrong, and I think it's damaged David Moyes' reputation, actually, which is unfortunate because he's having a terrific season. But yeah, it was a poor call in my view.
It's a surprising call, I thought, too, Adrian. If you look at it, like Zuma is still technically an employee of a big company, and if that came out even on a smaller scale with someone that's on 50k a year rather than 100k a week,
if he was a youth team player, reserve player, he'd be out. He'd be out. He'd be ostracised. It leaves a sour taste. I'm not saying we should cancel Kurt Zuma. I'm not saying he should.
But there should be some consequences for the actions. Like these.
Where I would compare it is the FA get involved, don't they, when they see historical tweets of vile messages, racist, homophobic, whatever, and from players 10 years ago when they were teenagers, and they ban them. And if they do that, then Kurt Zuma has to be banned. There's physical evidence that he's, of a major misdemeanor there, and I expect a ban, and maybe quite a lengthy ban to come. If there isn't, I think there'll be uproar.
Mark, pick it back up from the betting angles. Adrian touched it there like that. You reckon 2.5 over is a solid play, and again, I think Adrian I don't think he'd be too unhappy if he had to go with this one either.
Yeah, much more kind of clarity and confidence in this selection. I think over 2.5 goals, anything from 1.7 upwards is definitely an angle to take. I think it's 1.75 around at the moment. I know West Ham have gone off the boil a bit recently, particularly in the final third, and the majority of their most kind of entertaining matches have taken place at home. But I kind of plugged the figures into my model, and it's got a big goal expectancy for this, and it's all driven by the underlying numbers as opposed to the actual goal outputs. But at the same point, both cases make a very strong case in that regard. Leicester, before Anfield, highest goals per game in the division, 3.55, 70% hit rate for overs, 70% for BTTS. Their Premier League matches are averaging 3.21 expected goals, and that hikes to 3.37 at the KP. As Adrian says, they've scored in 17 of 20 Premier League games. We talked all season about their defensive issues, just the 3 clean sheets so far. Those goal trends actually extend much further on to just this season. You look at our last 35 Premier League games, which is effectively a full season, if you like. 26 of those have gone over 2.5 goals, so 74%. And 125 goals have been seen in those 35 games, which is 3.57 per game. So I think the beauty of the Leicester games is they're more than capable of scoring those 3 goals all on their own. But defensively, they can just capitulate and concede a hatful themselves. And Adrian talked about the head-to-head as well. I don't really read too much into these kind of stats, but interestingly, the last 7 meetings between the two, regardless of who won, ended 4-1, 3-2, 3-0, 4-1, 2-1, 2-2, and 1-1. So it's quite a goals-heavy fixture anyhow. And I just think West Ham can definitely play their part. We know about Leicester's issues defensively. West Ham have scored in all but 5 of their Premier League games this season, just the 6 clean sheets themselves, 4 of which came against the bottom 5. Their XG numbers, home and away, both sort of around the 2.9 mark, which is very encouraging as well. And you just look at the forwards who are available for this match. West Ham pretty much have a full complement, and I think Leicester is the same too, bar Vardy. So, plenty of attacking footballers will be on the pitch, plenty of invention, creativity, and hopefully plenty of players who can convert a few opportunities as well. Defensively, I think both are pretty suspect, and I think that plays itself pretty handily for a nice goals-based bet. So, yeah.
I'd love to put both teams to score here, but it's such a skinny price. I think this is it's not really backable at the moment, is it?
Adrian, I don't disagree with the Leicester no bet, right? But my worry is, and it's in terms of price, because again, we're recording this on Thursday morning, this is a Thursday night. If they get thumped tonight, I think you'll actually potentially get a bit of a bigger price. So I think we might just leave that off and kind of keep a watch and brief. But I think the goals line, if anything, it's probably going to come down from 1.75, then go the other way, I would suggest. So I think let's take that as our bet on Thursday morning. And again, if you're listening to this or watching this on Friday or Saturday, and you saw enough in Leicester that they made it some bit uncomfortable for Liverpool on Thursday night, then Leicester drawn up at 2.1, and that might be the way to go. All right, Everton Leeds, the next game I want to talk about. no real new manager bounce for Everton. One game in. But Mark, I'll start with you first. Let's take a look at the betting as we have it at matchbook.com. You can back the Toffees here at 2.26. Leeds United 3.25, which is 9-4 in fractional terms. The draw is available at 3.65. Leeds getting a quarter of a goal start in the main age and handicap line at 1.99, and 2.75 is the main goal line. But Marco here, I think there might be a better goal line to be backing here at a slightly skinnier price. And similar to last game, you expect goals here.
I do, yeah. I think it's a very sort of goal-laden potential game, this one. Just on Everton, I probably didn't appreciate the severity of their situation until after the Newcastle match. In hindsight, that was a huge, huge game against Newcastle midweek, and having lost it now, they're only 2 points above the drop zone. I know they've got a game in hand, but to be brutal about it, they're in a relegation battle at the moment, and I'm massively underwhelmed by the appointment of Frank Lampard, to be honest. And I think, unless he's able to engineer a massive U-turn, they're in a bit of a predicament at the moment. Quite shocking, actually, their form, long-term form now. Just one Premier League win since September. We're in mid-February. That's shocking for a team of Everton stature. 1 win, 3 draws, and 11 defeats since the start of October, which is the worst form of any team in the Premier League. They've scored 13 goals in that stretch and conceded 31. Just deeply unimpressed by what they served up against Newcastle. 0.66 XG, conceded 2.4. Watching with my own eyes, didn't look like they created hardly anything in the final third. A lot of sort of blood and thunder and not a huge amount of invention. And that was against one of the worst defences in the division. So as attacking force, pretty pitiful. And defensively, to concede 16 shots in the box to Newcastle, 3 chances which were considered big chances by the XG metric, and to have their own woodwork hit twice. That win was no fluke for Newcastle, and I think Lampard talked about a lack of confidence in the squad. Well, they need a massive reaction going forward, and sure, I know Gray and Mina went off early and things were disrupted, but I think they're massively missing Doucouré's presence in midfield. Calvert-Lewin was on the bench. We still don't know if he's fully fit or what's happening there. They need these big players back fit and available, otherwise they're really going to struggle. The only positive I have for them really is they do tend to do their best work at Goodison Park. I think 68% of their points tally have been collected at home, and they've scored twice or more in 6 of 8 at home when excluding the top 4, which is encouraging. But just 2 clean sheets at home, I think, tells its own story about Everton this season. Bearing in mind, Rafa Benitez, considered to be one of the better organisers, was in charge for the majority of that as well. So, and Lampard's track record isn't exactly, littered with clean sheets, is it? So, I'm expecting them to be go on the offensive here. He's talked himself about wanting Everton to be a bit more creative, a bit more front foot. So, I don't see why he'd start working on the defence after what happened at Newcastle. And then, as we know, Leeds, erratic bunch, aren't they? We don't really know what we're going to get from them from week to week. Fantastic at West Ham before the break, then dominated Newcastle but couldn't get a goal before the break, and then that thrilling match against Villa midweek as well, all done without Bamford, Phillips and Cooper, basically the spine of the side. And their general form since mid-October has been good. 4 wins, 5 draws, 5 defeats. If you exclude the top 7, 4 wins, 8 draws, 2 defeats. So they need a bit of respect here. I think they're more than capable of going to Goodison Park and getting something. But I think when you combine it with Everton's approach, if you like, under Lampard, I like the look of goals. Leeds themselves have scored in 8 of 11 away, in 23 of 30 away since promotion, which is really strong. And 20 of those 30 also went over 2.5 goals. I prefer Bamford to be available. He's not going to be, but I think Everton without Mina, Godfrey, Doucouré, possibly a few others, as well as their XG numbers so far this season. I think it's a goal-heavy game. So, just to give you a bit of interest, my model is giving a goal expectancy of 3.15, and I think that's probably about fair considering where these 2 teams are right now.
All right, Adrian, agreement here. I mean, look, that was a typical Leeds kind of game on Wednesday night. 3-3, 5 goals in the first half. Potentially, we may not get 6 goals, but I think we should surely clip 3.
I think so. Yeah, I think over 2.5 or over 2 3/4 would be the way to go here, for all the reasons that Mark outlined. The only negative on that angle is Calvert-Lewin's not fully fit and Bamford's not playing for Leeds. I think if those 2 were fit and fiery, it'd be pretty much nailed on. Dan James, to his credit, looked good, didn't he, in the game at Villa Park? I thought he's been in sharp form as that lone striker, and I do think he can cause Everton problems in the game. I do, because Yerry Mina for me is their best defender, and it looks like he's out. Godfrey's out as well. So I think that Leeds will pose a real threat. But as we saw against Villa, this man-to-man setup, it's It's carnage. It really is. Because if you've got runners, and Frank Lampard, remember, has got beef with Marcelo Bielsa from the Derby days. It's the old Spygate nonsense. He
That
famously
seems like a long time ago.
It
man.
does. I say beef. I mean, I'm sure they're over it now, but there's a little bit of spice there between the two of them. I don't think there's any doubt about that. When he was Chelsea boss, they spanked Leeds 3-1 at Stamford Bridge as well. He knows how to play against Leeds. He's managed teams against them before. So I think he'll come up with a game plan where runners just cause them all sorts of problems. And they've got some players that can do that. So yeah, but at the other end, a little bit like Leicester, you can't really have any trust or faith in this Everton rearguard. It's weak. I've seen it with my own eyes a couple of times that they're all over the place. So yeah, it has to be goals here. Also, I'm interested to know what the plan is around Dele Alli and Van der Beek as well. It's not immediate, is it? It's not. I think they played with a back three the other day, and then they both end up coming onto the pitch because of injuries, but maybe not in the roles that you would anticipate. So yeah, interested to see what Frank's got in mind for Everton in the here and now. I think this could be a chaotic match between two teams that are better going forward than they are without the ball. So yeah, goals I think is the play.
Yeah, I know. Like you did touch on the absentees there, but any Leeds game with a 2.5 line, yeah, quite happy to back the over there and see how we go. Adrian, your game of choice. That was Mark's game of choice. I really liked the goals angle as Norwich, Man City. Look, it's no major surprise, but there's too many teams. What game was this? Was it maybe 3 years ago that they were a similar price? They were 22.0 and they beat City at Carrow Road. They're 21.0 here, so the market is giving them a smidge bit more of respect. I'm not totally sure how much that is the Dean Smith effect, but
a shallow respect.
A shallow respect, man. Yeah, 1.18 you can back in City. That's your ACA buster there straight away. 8.6 you can back the draw. 2.25 is the goal line at 1.85. 3.25 is the total. Slightly shade towards the over. And look, there is some signs of resurgence there under these two. It's not much, but Adrian, like what have they scored? 13 goals in the league so far. They're just struggling to score as well. And look, if you're back in City, you got to be thinking that Norwich just aren't really going to trouble the score sheets too much.
You got to fancy Norwich here. I think that's my selection.
Leave me in.
I'm interested to see how Dean Smith goes about it. Obviously, they do have previous, and that I think might go against Norwich because Pep knows what the atmosphere is like there. He knows what it feels like to lose. So he will get his players fully focused. I've got no doubt about that. But yeah, because not part of Norwich's turnaround of sorts is the fact that they've played two strikers in Adam Ida and Teemu Pukki. Will he be bold enough to go and do that at the weekend? I hope so. I really do from their point of view, because you might as well go for it. It wasn't great, I have to say, after they got that early goal against Palace. They only had one shot on target all game, and 5 shots in total over the course of the 90 minutes. And that's at home to Palace. They had less than 30% of the ball as well at home to Palace. I mean, goodness me, what they have against City will be, between 10 and 20%, I would imagine. So they're improving, but they're limited, aren't they, Norwich? And I just sense that City, even though their away form isn't blowing people's socks off, that they were quite average in winning against Arsenal, drew at Southampton, scraped past Brentford. It's been a while since they turned it on away from home, and this might be the opportunity for them. They're going to have a lot of the ball. I think their movement and quality it's just at a different level, isn't it? Norwich are a decent team, but City are arguably the best team in the world at the moment, and for that reason, I just can't see Norwich laying a glove on them. I think that it'll be a really comprehensive, professional win for Manchester City, who have faced the lowest amount of shots. They've got the lowest XG against Manchester City. Yeah, so that for me, the obvious way in here is Manchester City to win 2-0. So Manchester City and BTTS know I think it's quite an attractive price. I really, if you think they're going to keep a clean sheet, surely you would. And if you think they're going to win, which surely you would, marry it all together, and all of a sudden you've got a backable price of 1.9. So that for me is a standout selection.
Yeah, both of those markets are available at matchbook.com. City to win to 0, City and both teams to score. No, the exact same price though, so you can't really get an edge either way, lads. 1.9. Mark, in agreement on this one, mate, yeah?
Yeah, I can't add too much to what Adrian said, really. The question with Man City when you come into their matches in these lopsided games is, can you find an edge anywhere in the market which can give you something, a decent price to cheer on? And ordinarily we'd go to City to win under 4.5 goals, but that's actually a really short price. And you have to find something City-based, haven't you? I mean, it's not reinventing the wheel by sort of suggesting that City might win this game. They've won 15 of the last 17 in the Premier League, but... Yeah, I'm glad Adrian did pick up on the away record, because since Boxing Day, City haven't been that impressive away from home. But you just feel they've also got a couple of gears in the still to sort of move up if they need to. So, I actually was quite surprised that the sort of 1.9 price was available on City to win to 0. Look at Norwich's record against the top 7. Or the top 8, I'm not sure. The league might have moved since I last looked, but it's basically 8 defeats from 8 against the leading lights in the league, and they've failed to score in all 8 defeats. They've actually scored just 1 goal against top half teams all season. And even if you just take their tally of 13 goals after 22, 23 games, it's pretty pitiful, really. And, midweek was such a great opportunity for them to score that goal so early against Crystal Palace and kind of get the crowd on their side as well, but to invite pressure in the way that they did was really disappointing. And although it was a beauty from Zaha, it was coming. The pressure was on and on and on, and they barely got out of their own half after that goal, which is very disappointing for Dean Smith. They're still very much in the relegation battle and still capable of pulling themselves out, but I think this is going to be a very, very difficult task. So yeah, City to win and not concede would be the angle to take.
Yeah, I love this angle, and I think we might be mentioning it later on in the show. No more mention of that, but City to win to 0 at 1.9. All right, Adrian, 2 League One selections for you. We have had previous with Accrington early on in the week. Unfortunately, they didn't concede to Oxford to get Mark's best bet up. But you like them to beat Crewe on Saturday and for it to be under 3.5 goals. Big price, 2.42.
Yeah, it is a big price, but yeah, and that's part of the reason why I've chosen it, really. Accrington are heavy favourites to win the game. I think 1.65, 1.66. So I want to boost it up, and when I paired it with under 3.5 goals, it's a very attractive price. And the reason I wanted to pair it up with under 3.5 goals is 7 of their 8 home wins. They're very strong at home, 8 wins already this season, but 7 of the 8 have come in under 3.5. Crewe can take the odd battering, but in general, they're not involved in high-scoring games. They've lost 11 on the road. They're having a bad season, Crewe Alexandra, and 9 of those 11 have come in under 3.5 when they've lost, and across the last 8 games as well. I think 3 of the combined 16 matches have featured more than 3 goals. So everything points, I think, towards a relatively low-scoring game. But with Crewe being shocking on the road, that they have the worst record in League One on their travels, just 1 win. Yeah, I think Accrington and under 3.5 is quite a standout at the price. Let's see if it comes in.
Yeah, absolutely. The next game, Cheltenham against Fleetwood. 2 teams that are kind of, if they're not careful, they will be dragged into that kind of dogfight towards the bottom. But you fancy a few goals in the console, 1.72.
Yeah, well, Cheltenham would be really boosted. They beat Sunderland, didn't they, in the week in front of a big crowd there, and they needed that because that was the first win for a while. So they'll come into the game, I think, with a real positive mentality. They're not that solid at this level. They're at League Two. They kept a lot of clean sheets under Michael Duff, but they found the going a bit tougher at this level. And one thing about Fleetwood is under their new manager, Craney, is that they're starting to score more goals. They're being a bit more positive. There's a guy called Paddy Lane, great name. He's in good nick at the moment. A young player that keeps on scoring. He's a winger as well, so he's one to keep your eye on. But yeah, so 20 of 30 games. 20 of 30 games for both teams both teams have scored. So, two-thirds of their matches end up with both teams scoring. That's a joint second highest return in League One. So they're the both teams to score. Specialists, if you look at clean sheets, just 4 for Cheltenham out of 30 and just 5 for Fleetwood out of 30. So, yeah, everything I think points towards them both getting on the score sheet. I can't tell you who's going to win. It might be a score draw. That would probably be my fancy here. But it's a skinny price, 1.72, but certainly backable given the strong stats and data that support that happening.
Yeah. I wonder, is Paddy any relation to Penny? I bet you never heard that before.
Brother.
I bet he never heard that before.
Can you imagine?
Yeah. All right, Mark. O'Hare, La Liga, Getafe plus 1.25 against Atletico Madrid at 1.85. Mark, Atletico, curious case. I mean, there's 17 points behind Los Blancos. They're near neighbours, but it's the defence this year. Like, I think if you look at their metrics in that league, they're nearly bottom half in terms of goals conceded. It's a rare venture with this team under Simeone.
Yeah, it is. I've not done a huge amount in La Liga this season. It's been quite a poor campaign, pretty low on quality. Real Madrid 6 points clear without being anywhere near a great team, if you like. And Atleti have really let people down, to be honest, defending their title. They're now in a really big scrap to just finish in the top 4. And if they don't finish in the top 4, it's potentially a disaster. They've got a huge wage bill. And last week they were well beaten by Barcelona 4-2. It was the 7th game in 8 in which they've conceded 2 or more goals. They've only kept 7 clean sheets across the whole league campaign, which is unheard of, really, under Simeone. As you say, they've got the worst defence in the top half, and they've fallen well below market expectations, as well as basically their underlying process, which suggests they should be doing a lot better. The positive for them was they got Savic and Jimenez back on the field together at centre-half last week, and I think they'll be better for the run-out. Those two haven't played enough together at centre-half this season, but they will be stronger for having those two available. But I just don't expect them to walk over Getafe at all. Getafe are absolutely flying. They've done something really remarkable, really. They're only 5 points off the top half, which is incredible, really, considering they started the season with 7 straight defeats and were winless after 11 games, losing 8 of those 11. So Quique Sanchez-Flores has come in and totally transformed them. They started by just kind of going back to the basics of what Getafe are known about, really, being difficult to beat, ugly, organised, physical, quite direct. And they got themselves into a reasonable position of promise, and they've since started to release the shackles a bit, playing with a bit more freedom, confidence, and playing some really good stuff as well. They really put Levante to the sword last Friday night, and I know it's Levante bottom of the table, but a very, very encouraging performance. They've now lost just 3 games since September in La Liga, 6 wins, 4 draws in their last 12, and they've kept 7 clean sheets in the last 10 as well. So performance data is ranking them inside the top 8 in terms of expected points over both the last 8 and 12 game splits, and no team is giving away fewer goal scoring opportunities than Getafe right now. So during this sequence, they've beaten Madrid, held Sociedad home and away, and they lost by 1 goal margins to Villarreal and Sevilla as well. So, and across the whole campaign, they've only lost by 2 or more goals 3 times. And when you consider how bad they were at the start of the season, that's another quite remarkable stat, really. So, compare it with Atleti. They've won by 2 or more goals just 4 times this season in the league, and they've been giving a 1.25 goal handicap hurdle here, which feels stiff. I think Getafe can be competitive, and if they do go down, I don't see them going down by 2 or 3 goals. I think they can keep this pretty competitive and stay within that region. So, I like Getafe with the start. Madrid derby on Saturday night should be quite feisty, but give the underdogs a fighting chance here.
Good stuff. All right, just before we get to best bets, we've had 14 winners from the last 18 selections, and if you're watching us the last couple of weeks, we've decided to enhance the guys double each and every week. If you do want to get involved, it'll be under podcast specials, and you haven't got a matchbook account, you can sign up today and you can use this bet, 20 quid welcome offer versus money back as cash if your first bet loses. Use the bonus code INSIGHTSRF so you can place the 20 quid bet on the best bets double that's coming up in a minute. I'll give you the best price after the guys give their selections. And if it loses, you get your money back. So, I don't know. That seems fairly fair to me. Insights RF, full terms and conditions can be found at insights.matchbook.com. And also, let me do a very quick recap because I forgot to do it there a while ago of the Premier League games we had at the top. Spurs and Wolves under 2.5 at 1.75. We're also taking Wolves plus a goal at 1.7. Leicester, West Ham over 2.5 at 1.75. Villa Leeds over 2.5, also 1.75. City to win, Man City to win to nil is at 1.9. And we just covered the EFL and La Liga. Insights.matchbook.com for a full recap of those bets each and every Thursday afternoon. And it's pretty useful on a Friday or Saturday if you just want a quick recap. Insights.matchbook.com. Adrian Clarke, your best bet. We covered it already. Put us out of our suspense. What is it?
Yeah, well, anyone who was listening 10 minutes ago be not surprised. My pick for best bet this week is Manchester City to beat Norwich City 2-0 at Carrow Road. I just think they're a class apart. Norwich, have failed to score on numerous occasions this season. Only one shot on target against Palace in midweek. Very negative approach, really, once they took the lead. So, I think City will boss this and win it at a canter. So, that's my pick at 1.9.
Good man. And Adrian, we're 40 minutes in. We haven't talked about Serie A, but Marco here, best bet.
Here we go.
Here we go. Bring it on, son. It's goals in Italy. But you know what? They're winning, lads. You check out the tweet there on Matchbook's account this morning. There's a full spreadsheet of Mark's Italian bets. They are winning. But the line of attack this week is kind of one towards the bottom half of the table. Empoli against Calgary, Mark.
Yeah, a few interesting matchups in Italy this weekend, but this one sort of piqued the interest because Empoli, newly promoted team, really comfortable in mid-table, had a really strong start to the season, but they're now winless in 7 and only 12 points above the drop zone, which might feel pretty significant. But they're playing Cagliari this weekend, who are really resurgent, if you like. They looked dead and buried a few weeks ago, and now they're out of the bottom 3 wins in 5, 4 defeats in 12. And if they were to win away at Empoli, suddenly that gap between where they are sitting in mid-table in the relegation zone becomes a lot more severe. So both teams will be kind of seeing this match as a very winnable opportunity. I think the goal line is quite generous, really, considering these two teams have managed just 5 clean sheets in their collective 48 Serie A games this season. Empoli have scored in 20 of 24 since promotion, and Cagliari have kept just 1 clean sheet all season. So we expect the home team to at least score in this game and contribute in that regard. But Cagliari's away record is a little bit deceiving because 9 of their 12 away trips have been to top half teams. And traditionally, I should say, the Sardinians aren't very good travellers. So they do tend to come unstuck against the best teams in the league. But last week, they turned over Atalanta away from home, which was a remarkable result, really. And they're certainly in a decent run of form, scoring goals and looking much more threatening. Walter Mazzari took a long time to get them going, but since probably around November's international break, they've looked pretty competitive, really. But the main sort of basis of this bet is Empoli's home record, which, games in Tuscany tend to be really wild affairs. 4 goals per game on average, Empoli's home matches. Over 2.5 goals has landed in 11 of 12. And both teams have scored in 10 of those 12 as well. Empoli have actually conceded 2 or more goals in 10 of 12 home matches, and they've actually conceded 15 goals and 6 when hosting the bottom half. So, I fully expect Cagliari to get on the score sheet here. As I mentioned, their defensive record is rotten, so Empoli should score. They're very good. They're quite an expansive team. They drew 0-0 with Bologna last weekend, but they absolutely battered Bologna and really should have scored in that match and won away from home. So, they're in. Despite failing to win in 7, they're actually still playing pretty well. I just think we've got 2 teams here. We'll see it as a winnable opportunity, and that normally lends itself to goals in Italy.
Good man, and we will combine those 2 selections. And Mark, I'm just going to preempt this, and I'm going to say that we're going to take the 2.5 rather than 3.5, obviously in the double there. That gets us a price of 2.98 at the time of recording on Thursday morning. That is very much the industry best price. We will keep it that way throughout the next couple of days. The first game of that is 5:30 on Saturday. But if you see that it's better elsewhere, the reputable sportsbook or exchange, drop us a DM or a message on Twitter and we will get it boosted up. Podcast specials at matchbook.com for that. Adrian, Mark, an absolute pleasure as ever, gentlemen. We'll be back again next week. Mark, you're going to be with us on Monday. Later time for the Champions League, recording at 2 o'clock with Jonathan Wilson. Don't forget insights.matchbook.com for a full recap of these bets. We'll be back for a weekend football podcast next Thursday. Best of luck with your bets this weekend. Goodbye for now.